So I actually came up to the Griphouse to do Thai boxing. There was nowhere down my way that did anything through the day, and I work basically from about 2 p.m. to 9 at night, so I was looking for somewhere. I messaged Guy who did the classes here, and he was really nice, said just come up. So I came up, and as I came into the Thai room, you pass this room on the left that's got all the mats and people are rolling about the floor, and I was like, is that jiu-jitsu? Because it just reminded me of, I was into watching the UFC, and I was like, that must be for all the ground game and that. So I plucked up the courage by talking to one of the girls in here, who actually, she does fight MMA now, Fee. We both decided to go and try the jiu-jitsu together, so having a partner kind of made it feel a wee bit less intimidating going in with all the guys rolling about, and literally from the first class I was hooked. I think it was maybe the second class I was planning on go to, it was actually sparring, and I didn't realise. And didn't realise until a guy had rolled under and grabbed my foot and footlocked me, and I'm like, tap, tap, I didn't know what was happening, but that was basically my first 2 experiences of it. I loved it, and I've been hooked ever since. That was January 2016. I ended up trying to balance doing Thai boxing in BJJ, and the timetable changed in here, and I actually had to choose one or the other. So because of the timetable change, I went full jiu-jitsu, and that, I think I just became addicted, and then I felt I wanted to roll with more females, as there weren't that many girls in here at the time. So I started entering competitions up and down the UK, and literally would be doing at least one a month, travelling up and down, maybe getting accommodation for a night, and travelling back up either by train or car. That was the start of the competing, and it definitely became a bit of an addiction. There's something about competing that's just different. It's totally different from being on the mats rolling. There's the adrenaline, it's exciting, you're getting to roll with someone you haven't normally, although it started to get a bit of the same, because as an up and coming sport, there still wasn't that many girls, so I was maybe going down south and I was getting the same girls I'd had in competitions, but I was doing really well, and I was getting loads of wins, loads of subs. That was the good thing about back then at white belt. It's a bit wilder at white belt. It's a bit more exciting to watch, I think, when you watch the white belts. They're not as skillful, so it can be a bit crazy. That watching back, I have loads of footage, and just because you've came to me or been asking me about things, I've been looking back at videos, and it's quite cool to look back and see how far you've came as well. But that's how I got into it, was just actually through Thai boxing, and then accidentally going into a rolling class. My first competition was in Motherwell, and I can't remember what the name of the actual venue was, but that was a bit of a disaster. I cut weight for it, and I'd never cut weight in my life for anything. I dropped down so that I had a fight, basically, to get an actual match. They get a weighed in, and as you weigh in, you then get called to the mat. She never turned up at the mat, so I was standing at the mat waiting, and she just never appeared. She'd left, she'd went home. So I was all psyched up, ready to go on first ever competition, and then it didn't happen. So it was a bit of like I was a wee bit down about it, and I think that was why the organisers had said, look, normally you have to medal to do the absolute, which is the open weight, so everybody in that belt category can compete. And they said you can do that if you want, so I got to do that with a teammate at the time who I knew was better, and she beat me, but it was good, and it meant I got a silver medal. There was only 2 of us in it, so I got a silver, and I was really chuffed about that. So it was a bit like that in the first comp, and especially having to cut weight, but didn't put me off, and I was more determined to go. Next month I went and did another one down in Newcastle, got a silver at it. And then I think from then on it was every month or maybe twice a month. I was just going down south, competing. Did one, my first gold was actually in Edinburgh, and I won the open weight, and that was great. That was a great feeling, getting up on the top of the podium, and from then getting that taste of gold. I was like, oh, this is it, medal chasing. The only ones up here are actually organised by a guy who trains here, and Gary Christie, who's like the head coach of BJJ in here. So they actually run Scottish Grappling and organise all the events up here. anything else is down south, or IBJJF, which is like the elite. That's where all the top guys in the world compete in IBJJF. That's like your UFC, I've referred to it to you as before, of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're all over the world. So if you have money to travel, this is the thing. You have to pay to enter these competitions, and you're talking like £50-60 just to enter. Then you need to go, get there, and if it's like abroad, so like you've got the flights, you've got accommodation, it's such an expensive sport. My first European competition was in Barcelona, the European Masters Championship, and that would have been 3 years ago. I was really excited about it because it was European, so it's quite a big title to have, the European champion. It's Masters, but it's European Championship, so you get that title after it. So I wasn't cutting weight for this one. I decided to go in comfortable, and I trained really hard for it. I think I had a few injuries in the run-up, but that is just part and parcel of doing jiu-jitsu. And we got out there, and the taxi took us to the wrong place to stay. This was the night before the competition. Dropped us in the middle of Barcelona, which looked really, really dodgy. My phone didn't work. I couldn't find the name of the apartment we were meant to be staying at, the street or anything, so I was a tad stressed. We got there at like 12:30 at night, eventually managed to find it. The taxi took us totally the wrong way. Anyway, not the start to the trip you want, but I had a banging sore head, and unfortunately that turned into a migraine. Nothing was shifting it, and I took pills, got up the next morning, couldn't eat, I literally like couldn't drink anything either. I was just being sick, had a banging sore head, and that was the start of a very long day competing. So I was being sick, running to fight, being sick, lying out outside, like couldn't drink any water or anything. It was terrible, but I won my match. I'm actually alright when I'm under pressure, and even when I'm ill, when I wasn't at the best of my ability, I managed to get gold, so it was quite a confidence boost. That was probably the biggest thing that I took from that competition. Luckily this year was better, I wasn't ill. This year was my third European Masters Championship, and it went very well. I came away with gold. So I had 2 matches. I had a submission, and the final I had a submission on but ran out of time. No points scored against me, didn't concede any points during this one. I felt great. I was at lighter weight, and I feel like I found this is the weight category for me. I felt strong, and I was even I weighed in really light for that weight category. I had a good 3 kilos at least to spare. I do get very nervous before competing. I might look composed, and everybody always says that to me. I seem really calm, but inside I'm not. I'm really nervous before I fight in jiu-jitsu. How do I deal with the nerves? Well, my new thing this year, music. I had my headphones in, I had music, and that got me through it. Music, that's my new thing. So when I'm in the bullpen, as they call it, you have to wait in the bullpen, and then you get called out to the mat, and that's you're fighting. When I'm in there, from now on, I'm going to have music on. Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes was on, and although I have a very wide-ranging taste in music, Taylor Swift was also in there as well. So this European gold medal meant so much to me. I've been out of competing for about a year. June last year was the last I competed. That was the British Championship where I got gold. But then injuries, I've had a torn LCL, fractured eye socket. I had to be sensible, and also work has changed, so I've been working a lot more, set hours. So jiu-jitsu was I had a wee break from competing, because if I couldn't give it everything coming in as consistently, then I didn't want to be competing. So being back, I have trained so hard for this, like constant, like 5-6 days a week, putting in the 2 hours, 3 hours on a Saturday graft, which is brutal, cutting the weight, and for it all to pay off and get that gold and not to lose any points. It was just amazing. I felt very emotional when they raised my hand and I knew I had won. So the first bout in Barcelona, I didn't know either of my opponents, because sometimes you recognise them and you've seen them at previous comps, but I didn't know any of these girls. I felt really dominant from the outset. I managed to pass her guard. As you get points for that. So I had racked up a good amount of points. I was on top in a dominant position, and I managed to secure a Kimura submission, and she tapped. So no points scored against me in that match, and I managed to get the submission, which is always the goal. We always want to get that. And also no points scored against you is always good as well. The final, that was a great match as well. I really enjoyed both my matches, and I always say I like to have a good role when you're in a competition, but there are rounds where if somebody gets points, they'll try and hold you so that you can't get any points. That's the way competing works. If somebody gets points up on you, they're going to keep you and try and stall. So this was actually a really good match, and the girl was really aggressive. It was a good fight, but again I managed to pass her guard, get on top, secure the Kimura. Again, I seem to be a fan of this Kimura at the moment. It is a favourite submission in the Griphouse training, but I've never got it in a competition until recently. And that was, I had that the Kimura submission on right up until the end, just about to get it, and the timer went. So I think in an extra 5 seconds I would have got 2 submissions there for that gold. But no points scored against me again, so it was really dominant performance by myself. I'm running out of space for them. I had them on little hooks on the wall, and I have a gym in the house, but the wall's not big enough, and my partner keeps joking about that I'm going to pull the wall down, because I do have a crazy amount. I think we had counted over 45 medals or something. So I've started framing my IBJJF ones, my gold, my championship ones, like the title ones. They're getting framed now. They get pride of place on the wall, but I really don't know what I'm going to do with all of them. I also have a sword that's on display and a quaich little bowl, Scottish bowl. The sword was for an open weight. I think it was a Scottish open weight. That was cool, getting to hold it like this. So I would love to do the World Masters in Vegas, but obviously it's expensive to enter and to get there and to stay there. Everyone knows Vegas is expensive. It would be cool to go, but that is like probably the aim. And also I just want to get better at jiu-jitsu and just keep the injuries away and let me keep this amount of training up, because I'm really enjoying the level that I'm managing to get in there now. If I made it to the Worlds and I managed to enter it and get a shot at it, obviously you hope you would win, but it would be great just to get the experience and be out there with, you know, that level of competition. It's the best way to learn, is to get out there and compete, because it's totally different. You're under pressure, you know, things are totally different. So experience and just learning. I've learned a lot from it. I would like to go to the European Nogi, which is in Rome, and then obviously the next progression I feel would be to go on to do the World Masters in Vegas. That would be great. To win a world title, I have no idea what that would feel like. That seems like a dream at the moment. But it would be great. It would be amazing. Yeah. Griphouse is a great place to train, and I wouldn't have got anywhere where I am now without you guys in here. Everybody's awesome. Everybody's friendly and welcoming. I mean, from coming up here that first day when I didn't know anybody, I could easily have been put off, but no, everybody's great up here, and I highly recommend coming up and trying any of the classes. Thai, MMA, BJJ, just come up. Everybody's really nice. Paul's great. He's a good laugh. He's very, very knowledgeable. Between Paul and Gary as the coaches in here, well, they've obviously taught me everything. That and all the guys that I train with, you know, rolling and getting beaten up every day is really good for you. I would love to get more girls into jiu-jitsu. It's still quite an up-and-coming sport. There are more and more coming through in here. It's very intimate. You can't be shy, but everybody's really nice. It's such a good stress reliever, jiu-jitsu. That's the thing I find for me. It's an outlet for me. I do a lot of physical activity, and you do get really fit from doing jiu-jitsu, but for me it's a mental thing. It's very technical, and it is problem solving, and I think that's why I really like it. I was a geek at school. I loved studying, and that is at jiu-jitsu. You can't ever know it all. Like, you're always learning, and it really is. Problem solving is the best way to describe jiu-jitsu, while people are trying to choke you and break a limb. That's the way I would describe it, but I highly recommend it. It's so good. On a day-to-day basis, I am a personal trainer and I teach fitness classes, and I manage our sports centre. The sports centre is actually under threat of closing, so I'm trying to save it. So that's why there's a lot of hours getting put in there. So general day for me is 2 hours here, home, which is 45 minutes away, and then I start work an hour later normally, and that's me till 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. I stay in Ayrshire. I'm based down in Ayrshire for work as well, but I'll travel up to Glasgow in the morning, do my training for 2 hours, travel back down to Ayrshire, and I will work teaching classes and doing personal training and dealing with the sports centre, managing tasks. That is a normal day for me. It's tiring, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm Paul McVeigh. I'm the jiu-jitsu coach at the Griphouse gym in Glasgow. It started off with a bunch of students who were interested in combat sports. There was me, Guy Ramsey, a few of the other guys who are still here today. And we basically kind of just pulled our resources, mainly Guy because he was the main grown-up, and we kind of got a gym in Maryhill. It got popular, we moved here, and it's been growing and growing ever since then. And we've produced a lot of top-level athletes in all the sports we do. Numerous UFC fighters have been through the doors. We've had like Joanne, you mentioned. Robert Whiteford was one of our guys. He was the first Scottish person in the UFC. Stevie Ray does some of his training here. He's pretty much a stalwart. He's having his 10th fight, and there's numerous others who've been through the doors. I've been competed for about 15 years. I was the #1 guy in Europe for about 5 of those years. Well, me and James Doolan, who's here today, we were #1 and #2. I got there first, so was able to sit on it because we were never going to fight. I was a 2-time Cage Warriors world champion and won some other stuff as well. Coaching for about 10 years. Rachael's been, like from the very start, she was very, very consistent. She originally was here training as a Thai boxer for doing the sport of Muay Thai, and eventually made the transition to Jiu-Jitsu. And I think it was really when she started competing. She started doing a lot of competitions, doing well, because at the start I think it was due to her being a very, very good athlete. She was strong, fast, was able to move well, and got some success in that range, and then just started to got the bug, and was like was here pretty much every day. Every morning class she was here, generally here, putting in the work, training with guys a lot bigger than her. We do have a lot of girls at the gym as well, but like she would look for the hard rounds, and like she's just progressed, and to the point now where she's like an excellent competitor. Rachael's work ethic is like, it's second to none. She's puts the time on the mat. She does extra training out with the class. Obviously she's got her whole health and fitness thing, so she's always going to be in her divisions one of the higher end athletes, but she's really accepting of ideas, where she will kind of take something on board and then run with it for a while. I know she does a lot of stuff with one of our guys, Danny Martin, who's got a very good half guard game. She's kind of incorporated that over the while, and just different. The main thing is that I've noticed with her recently is she's had a change of mindset. She's being a bit more, don't want to use the word aggressive, but assertive. Like she will go after stuff a little bit more, as opposed to being a bit like she would try to use too much technique in the past. Now she's using some of those physical attributes that she has in a productive manner. When she started competing, it was kind of mixed results and stuff, but then once she started picking up a few gold medals and stuff, I think that's when it became addictive for her. That's when the training became more consistent, and just the effort level going into it was got higher and higher. In recent years, Rachael has just like she's got some pretty good she's got some good technique, but it's just the mindset stuff that's been changing. She's more assertive, and she'll chase stuff down a little bit more. She'll put more kind of, as opposed to overthinking stuff, it seems to be coming a lot more natural now, which is the hallmark of a good competitor. It's becoming automated almost. There are more competition avenues available. Like winning the Euro Masters is a big step. Then the next thing would probably be the kind of the Worlds. The Worlds is pretty much the Worlds Masters is probably much the biggest. That's the pinnacle of the division that Rachael's in at the moment, and everything's harder at that level. Everyone's better, everyone's like well trained, and it's the real big teams in Europe. There are some excellent competitors, but by and large, The people are kind of like, it's like this place, it's like small gyms, there's not big name coaches training. In the Worlds, everyone's trained by a black belt world champion, so the level is harder. You can still compete at that level. We've had guys medal at those events and do very, very well, but again, it is a jump, and it's whether or not she wants to do that. But when she does, she'll have our full support. Competing at the Worlds is a big step. Obviously, there's like the expense of kind of hotels, accommodation, and the fees. This is something a lot of people don't know. With the community, you have to pay to compete in jiu-jitsu. It's very strange to a lot of other sports, but it's a sizable amount of money to compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments, and at the highest level, which the World is, it's even more kind of financially kind of tricky. So the resources you need, basically, ideally sponsors, are like a lot of the big teams that will have sponsors and stuff. It's not something we've actively pursued, and probably something we should if we're getting more and more people competing in the Worlds. Coaching Rachael is it's actually quite fun, because I have a certain manner when I'm coaching, where I'm kind of, depending who it is, I could be quite nice to them, or depending if it's not, I could be quite. Yeah, I bully Rachael a lot, to be fair, but she takes it very well. It's like a kind of good-natured sports team kind of ribbing, and I hope she takes it that way. And if she doesn't, we should probably have a conversation about that. But yeah, she takes some information on board well and does whatever you ask of her. Like, she's basically the model student. There's nothing more I could really ask of an athlete. She does extra. She stays in, she's one of my main sparring partners. I get to train for most days. She's a good reason why we have a lot of girls training here, because people come in and see someone who's at a high level and also is female, and they go, oh, this is doable. We only have again, it's the gym's mostly male. I think that's kind of the nature of the sport, but she's done wonders for showing people within the gym what's kind of you can achieve and stuff. And we've probably got the biggest girl team in Scotland now. Rachael's definitely one of our top jiu-jitsu competitors. She pretty much medals in everything she competes in, and yeah, she's a good inspiration for all the other girls that are coming through and doing what she's doing.